The year is 1940, and the world is on the precipice of unimaginable global conflict. The air war in Europe is already demonstrating the terrifying potential of high-speed monoplane fighters. Across the Pacific, both American and Japanese naval aviation commands are evaluating the next generation of carrier-based aircraft. In Connecticut, a radical new fighter prototype, the Vought F4U, is being unveiled to the admirals and observers. Its massive 13-foot, 4-inch propeller is a visual testament to the immense power of the 2,000-horsepower Pratt & Whitney double Wasp engine. This engine demanded a long nose and high landing gear to achieve the necessary propeller clearance. The resulting aircraft, with its unmistakable inverted gull-wing design, looked aggressive, unconventional, and almost alien to the eyes of the time. Intelligence reports on this strange-looking American experiment soon made their way to the highest echelons of the Imperial Japanese Navy. Japanese commanders, confident in the maneuverability and performance of their agile A-6M0 fighter, found the F4U Corsair to be a subject of ridicule. They saw an overly complicated, overweight machine seemingly designed for speed at the expense of all other combat attributes. The high-mounted cockpit and long nose led to notoriously poor forward visibility, which seemed to them a fatal flaw in a dogfighting platform. Naval tradition emphasized the tight-turning dogfight, a realm where the lumbering American design appeared utterly outmatched. They believed its complex folding wings and heavy structure would prove a liability in the fast-paced, demanding environment of carrier operations. This initial, dismissive assessment would become one of the most critical and costly intelligence failures of the Pacific War. Their laughter, echoing briefly through the war rooms, was a prophetic misstep that doomed countless Japanese pilots in the years to come. The Corsair's design was not merely evolutionary, it was a profound leap forward in naval aviation technology. Vought engineers were tasked with creating the fastest possible carrier-based fighter, which necessitated radical solutions to complex problems. The key to the Corsair's speed lay in the enormous A2800 double Wasp engine, the most powerful radial engine available to the Allies. To harness this power efficiently, the aircraft needed a huge propeller, which presented an immediate engineering quandary. A traditional straight wing would have required impossibly long landing gear to keep the massive prop clear of the carrier deck or runway. The innovative inverted gull wing solved this problem elegantly by effectively shortening the necessary length of the landing struts. This unique wing shape also reduced aerodynamic drag where the wing met the fuselage, further enhancing the top speed. The F4U could achieve speeds in excess of 400 miles per hour, making it dramatically faster than any other carrier fighter in the world at its introduction. Its construction was rugged, designed to absorb significant battle damage, a characteristic the lightly built Japanese fighters notably lacked. The formidable armament of 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns gave it a devastating punch, capable of shredding enemy aircraft in a single burst. Every aspect of the design was focused on a single strategy: speed and diving attacks, avoiding the protracted, low-speed turns favored by the Japanese. Its thick armored glass and self-sealing fuel tanks offered a level of pilot protection considered excessive by the early war Japanese doctrine. This focus on structural integrity and raw power marked a significant departure from the American pre-war emphasis on maneuverability. The revolutionary airframe was a testament to American industrial might and the foresight of Vaught's design team, led by Rex Beisel. It was an engineering marvel, a powerful beast of an aircraft that promised dominance, if only its pilots could learn to tame it. Despite its revolutionary design and blistering performance, the Corsair faced a rocky and near-disastrous introduction into service. The very features that made it fast also made it notoriously difficult and often deadly to land on an aircraft carrier. Its long nose completely obscured the pilot's view during the crucial final moments of the approach and landing phase. Pilots were forced to weave the aircraft back and forth, a procedure known as S-turning, just to keep the landing signal officer in sight. The oil-cooler air intakes positioned on the wing's leading edge contributed to an aerodynamic stall characteristic that was sudden and vicious. If a pilot dropped the tail too low at the point of touchdown, the left wing would often snap stall, resulting in a violent bounce off the deck. This unpredictable and violent motion, sometimes causing the plane to clear the landing wires and crash into the barrier or forward aircraft, was horrifying. The U.S. Navy, facing these harrowing accidents and a constant shortage of qualified carrier pilots, officially rejected the Corsair for shipboard use in 1942. They deemed the F4U too difficult and dangerous for the average naval pilot to operate under combat stress. This rejection was a massive setback for Vought and a temporary vindication for the skeptical Japanese commanders. The fighter, now nicknamed the Hose-Nose or the Hog, was relegated to the less demanding duty of land-based operations. The Marine Corps, desperate for a frontline fighter to combat the Zero, eagerly accepted the rejected aircraft for use on their island airfields. This seemingly demoted role would ironically place the Corsair exactly where it was needed most, flying off the rudimentary, dirt strips of the Solomon Islands. It was a humbling start for the plane that was supposed to redefine air superiority, but the Marines were about to unlock its true, terrifying potential. The Marines' decision to adopt the Corsair for land-based operations proved to be the lifeline the struggling aircraft desperately needed. In February 1943, Marine Fighter Squadron VMF-124 became the first to deploy the F4U to Guadalcanal's infamous Henderson Field. The brutal, unforgiving conditions of the South Pacific airfields were a perfect match for the Corsair's rugged, overbuilt structure. Landing on a long, dirt, or steel mat runway was significantly easier and safer than attempting the challenging deck landing on a pitching carrier. The Marines quickly discarded the notion of dogfighting with the nimble Zero and instead embraced the Corsair's strengths. Their new tactic was simple, deadly, and effective: use the superior speed and climb rate to engage on their terms. The strategy was known as hit and run or boom and zoom, a devastating tactical shift for the Pacific theater. A Corsair pilot would position himself high above the Japanese formation, dive at top speed, deliver a punishing burst of machine gun fire, and then use that same speed to climb back up and away, completely out of the enemy's reach. The Zero, with its poor high-altitude performance and lack of speed, was powerless to counter these attacks. If a Zero attempted to turn with the Corsair, the American pilot would simply disengage and climb away, knowing the Japanese fighter could not follow. This change in doctrine transformed the Corsair from an unreliable carrier hazard into the undisputed master of the skies over the Solomon Islands. The Marine aviators affectionately nicknamed the plane the bent-wing bird, a term of respect for its unconventional yet potent shape. By finding its niche on the ground, the Corsair began to accumulate an unparalleled combat record that silenced its critics and terrified its enemies. The psychological impact of the Corsair on the Japanese aviators was immediate and profound, born directly from its overwhelming performance envelope. Japanese pilots were accustomed to dictating the terms of engagement, relying on their superior turning radius to win every fight. Suddenly, a massive, heavily armed American fighter was appearing seemingly from nowhere, initiating attacks at terrifying velocity. The speed differential between the Corsair and the Zero was often over 100 miles per hour, a gap that was insurmountable in a chase. Its incredible rate of climb meant that even if the Zero managed to avoid the initial pass, the Corsair was already halfway back to safety and altitude. This ability to control the vertical plane of the battle was the decisive factor in hundreds of encounters over the Pacific. The 6.50 caliber machine guns delivered a coordinated mass of destructive firepower that could disintegrate the lightly armored Zero in an instant. Japanese pilots frequently reported seeing their comrades' planes simply explode under the impact of the heavy-caliber slugs. The Zero's pilots quickly realized that maneuvering to evade a Corsair's initial pass was their only chance for survival. If they were caught in the crosshairs, the structural fragility of their aircraft ensured a swift and often fatal conclusion to the engagement. The Corsair effectively forced the Japanese to abandon their traditional dogfighting tactics, placing them in a constant state of defensive reaction. Its terrifying screaming dive, caused by the airflow over the wing leading edges, became the soundtrack of panic for many enemy pilots. This new reality meant that the age of the nimble, easy-to-damage dogfighter was over, replaced by the reign of the powerful, fast, and durable American machine. The Japanese pilots now referred to the F4U not with contempt, but with grudging respect and a growing, palpable fear of its lethal speed. The root of the Japanese commanders' initial laughter lay in a deep-seated and crippling overconfidence in their own pre-war aerial doctrine. They believed the turning fight was the ultimate measure of a fighter pilot and their aircraft's worth, dismissing speed and ruggedness as secondary. The early war dominance of the Zero, which shredded every opponent it met, solidified this tactical dogma within the Imperial Navy. They viewed any aircraft that sacrificed agility for armor or horsepower as a design flaw born from a lack of skill, not a calculated strategic choice. Their analysis failed to grasp the significance of the shift from biplane-era dogfighting to the fast-paced, high-altitude combat of World War II. They also drastically underestimated the capacity of American engineers to solve complex problems and rapidly integrate field experience into design improvements. The intelligence reports on the Corsair's difficult carrier trials only reinforced their initial, flawed conclusion that the aircraft was a failed concept. By the time they truly understood the Corsair's potential, particularly its ability to operate at altitudes and speeds the Zero could not match, it was too late. The crucial design elements, the massive engine, the inverted wing, the heavy armor, were not liabilities but essential, game-changing strengths. This profound tactical oversight cost them air superiority over key islands, which in turn sealed the fate of their garrisons on the ground. The Japanese were forced to rush new, more powerful, but still structurally inferior fighters into combat, always playing catch-up to the F4U's ever-improving variants. Their early disdain for the lumbering American fighter transitioned into a desperate scramble to find an effective counter, a scramble they never won. The Corsair was the physical manifestation of an industrial and doctrinal approach that prioritized pilot protection, firepower, and brute force over delicate maneuverability. The laughter of 1940 was extinguished by the roar of the double Wasp engine in 1943, marking the irreversible turning point in the Pacific Air War. Guadalcanal was the proving ground where the Corsair shed its image as a liability and earned its reputation as a fearsome, war-winning weapon. The fighting over this mosquito-infested island was an intense, brutal grind, and control of the air was absolutely paramount to victory. Henderson Field, carved out of the jungle, was the fragile lifeline for the U.S. forces, and it was under constant threat from Japanese air attacks. The Corsair's arrival meant that the skies were no longer a relatively safe operating area for the Japanese bombing and fighter escorts. Its long range and high performance allowed it to engage the Japanese express flights, which originated from distant Rabaul, well before they reached the island. The combat statistics from the Guadalcanal campaign quickly revealed the F4U's devastating effectiveness against the Zero and other enemy aircraft. In the hands of the U.S. Marine pilots, the Corsair rapidly established a kill-to-loss ratio that was completely unprecedented in the theater. This lopsided victory ratio proved that the boom and zoom tactic had neutralized the Zero's advantage in a turning fight. The F4U's ability to sustain battle damage, often limping home with dozens of bullet holes, saved the lives of numerous Marine aviators. The early engagements created a cadre of hardened, confident Corsair pilots who became the terror of the skies above the Solomon Islands. Their presence provided a massive morale boost for the beleaguered ground troops who constantly depended on aerial protection and close support. Guadalcanal was the crucible where the Corsair, through relentless, successful combat, demonstrated its worth as the premier fighter of the Pacific. Its victories fundamentally changed the tactical calculus for all future air operations, confirming that speed was indeed king in aerial combat. Among the many legendary squadrons to fly the F4U Corsair, none captured the public imagination quite like Marine Fighter Squadron VMF 214, the Black Sheep. Under the controversial yet charismatic leadership of Major Gregory "Pappy" Boyington, the squadron quickly achieved unparalleled fame and success. Boyington, an unconventional and deeply experienced pilot, molded a group of diverse, replacement pilots into an elite, highly effective fighting unit. They adopted the Corsair with ferocity, leveraging its powerful attributes to rack up an astonishing number of confirmed aerial victories in a very short time. The squadron's aggressive flying and high kill totals became a beacon of hope and a symbol of American air dominance in the Solomons. Boyington himself became one of the top American aces, a figure whose exploits were celebrated both on the home front and across the Pacific. Their success was a pure demonstration of what a skilled pilot could achieve when flying an aircraft that possessed a decisive performance advantage. The Black Sheep's legacy became inextricably linked with the Corsair, transforming the aircraft into a cultural icon of World War II. Their stories, filled with daring engagements and against-the-odds survival, helped to cement the F4U's reputation as the ultimate fighter plane. The sheer volume of their operational tempo and combat engagements demonstrated the Corsair's rugged reliability under the most intense conditions. VMF 214's extraordinary effectiveness served as a final, crushing blow to the Japanese belief that American pilots and machines were inferior in aerial combat. Their victories over the Solomons chain provided the critical air cover necessary for the entire island-hopping campaign to succeed. The Black Sheep epitomized the spirit of the Corsair, powerful, unconventional, and ultimately, overwhelmingly victorious against the odds. The Corsair's versatility extended far beyond its remarkable record in air-to-air combat, making it a true multi-role asset for the Marine Corps. As the island campaigns progressed, the need for reliable and heavy close air support for ground troops became increasingly critical. The F4U, with its robust airframe and heavy load-carrying capacity, was ideally suited to this demanding and often deadly mission. It could carry a significant bomb load and, later, unguided rockets, which were absolutely devastating against Japanese fortifications and troop concentrations. Marine pilots flying the Corsair developed a fearsome reputation for their ability to deliver ordnance with pinpoint accuracy, often perilously close to friendly lines. The sheer volume of machine gun fire from the 6 wing-mounted Brownings was enough to suppress entire Japanese defensive positions. This close coordination between the Marines on the ground and the Corsairs overhead was a tactical advantage the Japanese rarely managed to overcome. The constant, intimidating presence of the F4U overhead was a massive boost to the morale of the American infantry. Conversely, the Japanese ground troops came to fear the distinctive silhouette and engine sound of the Whistling Death, as they called the fighter. Its structural integrity meant it could withstand the ground fire inherent in low-level attack runs better than most other contemporary aircraft. The F4U essentially functioned as a flying artillery piece, providing on-demand fire support to break up enemy counterattacks and clear obstacles. This dual capability, air superiority fighter and ground attack bomber, made the Corsair a force multiplier that accelerated the pace of the entire Pacific campaign. It was this intimate partnership with the ground forces that defined the F4U's contribution to the island battles, solidifying its legendary status. Despite its combat success, the F4U's difficult handling characteristics, particularly for new and inexperienced pilots, earned it a second, darker nickname. The plane was famously and grimly referred to by its own pilots as the Ensign Eliminator, a tragic testament to the challenges of mastering the powerful machine. An ensign was the lowest commissioned officer rank in the U.S. Navy, typically assigned to newly minted, inexperienced pilots fresh out of flight school. These young aviators were often the victims of the Corsair's complex and unforgiving stall behavior during the crucial, high-stress landing phase. The Navy's initial rejection stemmed from the high rate of training accidents and the inherent difficulty for a novice to execute a perfect landing. The aircraft required immense concentration and perfect energy management from the pilot to avoid the catastrophic left-wing stall on landing approach. The long nose and poor visibility added to the challenge, demanding an unnatural amount of situational awareness and reliance on instruments. Countless promising careers were cut short and lives were tragically lost not to enemy fire, but to the demanding and brutal nature of their own aircraft. This deadly learning curve meant that every pilot who successfully transitioned to the Corsair was considered a skilled survivor, hardened by his own machine. The moniker Ensign Eliminator served as a constant, sobering reminder of the aircraft's inherent dangers and the high price of learning to master it. It also highlighted the massive skill gap between the veterans who knew the plane's every quirk and the new replacements struggling to catch up. The Corsair demanded respect and perfection, and any lapse in concentration, particularly by a green pilot, was often met with immediate, fatal consequences. This lethal reputation, though dark, only further solidified the legendary, almost mythological status of the F4U among the men who flew and survived it. The final and enduring legacy of the Corsair is its remarkable journey of continuous improvement and its ultimate acceptance by the U.S. Navy. Vought engineers, utilizing the vast pool of field data from marine operations, relentlessly worked to mitigate the aircraft's critical flaws. The most important modification was a simple 10-inch extension of the main landing gear strut, which gave the aircraft a higher deck angle on approach. This relatively minor change drastically reduced the tendency of the left wing to stall during a bounced landing, making the aircraft safer on the carrier. A raised seat and a bubble canopy on later models finally addressed the pilot visibility issue, giving the aviator a clear, unobstructed view forward. By late 1944, the fully perfected F4U's 1D and subsequent F4U for models were finally deemed suitable for routine, full-time carrier operations by the Navy. The aircraft that had been rejected 2 years earlier was now the absolute core of the fleet's fighter complement, often replacing its own successor. The Corsair's reputation had evolved from the Hogs to the Angel of Okinawa, a powerful symbol of aerial protection during the final, bloody campaigns. Its incredible performance allowed it to take on the most advanced Japanese fighters, including the formidable Shidenkai, and consistently win. By the end of the war, the Corsair boasted a staggering 11-to-1 kill-to-loss ratio against all enemy aircraft, an unsurpassed record. It became the most produced American fighter of the war, remaining in production long after VJ Day, serving with distinction in the Korean War. The final variants, such as the F4U-5, were faster and more technologically advanced than most jets of the immediate post-war era. The journey from a much-mocked prototype to the undisputed master of the Pacific skies is a powerful testament to American wartime innovation and perseverance. The Vought F4U Corsair story is the perfect cinematic arc of initial struggle, ultimate triumph, and enduring, fearsome reputation. It overcame engineering challenges, pilot skepticism, and its own deadly learning curve to become one of the greatest fighters of all time. The Japanese commanders who once laughed at its unconventional appearance were silenced by the sheer scale of the victories it achieved. Its kill-to-loss ratio remains an astonishing figure, a cold, hard fact that symbolizes the overwhelming air superiority it delivered to the Allied forces. The Ensign Eliminator ultimately proved to be a far more efficient eliminator of Imperial Japanese aviation, delivering a constant, heavy toll on enemy pilots. The Corsair's powerful engine and rugged design set a new standard for naval aircraft performance that influenced every subsequent fighter design. It was one of the few fighters of the Second World War that successfully transitioned into jet-era combat, performing vital close air support during the Korean War. Its distinctive bent wing and massive propeller remain an iconic and instantly recognizable symbol of American power in the Pacific theater. Every preserved Corsair flying today is a living testament to the skill of the pilots who tamed the beast and the engineers who dared to be radical. The aircraft serves as a perpetual reminder that in war, performance and durability often trump elegance and traditional agility. The initial laughter was a fleeting moment of hubris that cost the Japanese control of the skies and, eventually, the war itself. The F4U Corsair, the fighter that was too fast, too heavy, and too difficult, ultimately delivered vengeance in every cannon shell and every bombing run.